It is Ryan Seacrest here. Everybody needs some variety in life. That's what I love about Chumba Casino. They know how to keep things fresh and exciting. All their games are free to play. Like spin slots, bingo, and solitaire. You can claim free daily login bonuses, too. And they release new games every week. So spice things up with ChumbaCasino.com now for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Cinesmack contains spoilers of the spoiling type. If you don't want your spoilers spoiled, please turn back now. Otherwise, enjoy the show!
Gentlemen, let's broaden our minds. Lawrence?
Ladies and gentlemen! Welcome to the main event! This is Cinesmack! And the winner is...
Hello, Cinesmacketeers, and welcome to about 133 of Cinesmack, the podcast about films by filmmakers. I'm your guest host, Anders Zumwaltz. Joining me tonight is our panel of award-winning judges. First, writer, actor, and director, Kyle. I don't take this shit from friends, only lovers. Fine.
Well, to quote most of my high school girlfriends, I did sleep with him once, and it still thinks I'm gay. Wait, no. To quote me about most girls I slept with in high school, I did sleep with her once. Take two. You get it.
Second, filmmaker and owner of Cheshire Moon Films, Tom was hit by a Guinness truck haggis.
Yeah, I could explain everything if you could just see me with my clothes off.
Well, you're not seeing what I'm seeing. Third, filmmaker and owner of One Genome Short Productions, Gabriel. I like that Mediterranean-looking women.
Push in for a close-up. Not too close.
Fourth, filmmaker and owner of Southsider Studios, and normally hosting, but is busy with hair and makeup, Mike. I am responsible for my own orgasm, Keeler.
Oh, honey, I'm so happy.
Was that usually Sam's responsibility to do the
Harvey
to do that impersonation?
Firestein, yes.
Yeah.
Or me when I have a cold.
Aww.
Yeah, Mike turns into Harvey Firestein when he's got a cold.
Well, that's beautiful.
True.
Well, after all that, let's poke the monkey and see what two films are dressing up together.
Ladies and gentlemen, dads in disguise and out-of-work actors, welcome to the main event. Tonight, two desperate dudes do what they must to meet their goals. Who is dressed for success and who is headed home in their heels? In the first quarter, from 1993, written by and fine Randy Mayen-Singer and Leslie Dixon, directed by Chris Columbus, starring Robin Williams, Sally Field, and Pierce Brosnan. Mrs. Doubtfire! In the second quarter, from 1982, written by Don McGuire, Larry Gelmont, and Mary Shizko, directed by Sidney Pollack, starring Dustin Hoffman, Jessica Lange, and Dabney Coleman. Tootsie!
Now, there's a real difference in energy between the hosts here.
Oh, I'm sorry. Do I need to bring it down?
No.
No.
No, I wasn't saying that. I was just saying between you and Mike, there's an obvious difference.
Oh. Well, all right. Yeah, tonight we are talking about Mrs. Doubtfire and Tootsie. So let's get right into the rounds. Writing. We are going to start off with Tom.
Hey, all right. So let's talk about the writing. Mrs. Doubtfire. I've already done this actually once. I think I did writing the last time we started. So I'm going to take some of the stuff I said before. This will be a little bit more in depth.
No.
Yeah.
And thank you, Tom. Thank you. And we're moving. Michael just put that in.
Carry on.
That'll be fine.
Oh, what a time saver!
My family also thought it was hilarious, and they also think you're dicks. So
well, they're right.
Anyway.
You have a very smart family.
Mrs. Doubtfire and Tootsie. Mrs. Doubtfire is kind of what you call maybe like a new classic. It's from the last 30 years. I can't believe it's almost 30 years old, this movie. But it's on a lot of people's lists as a movie that they enjoy. And I've watched it a couple of times over the years. I don't think I've ever really sat down and watched it beginning to end like I did for the podcast in quite a while. And the thing that struck me the most is how badly it aged. There's a lot of parts in this movie that they probably wouldn't do right now. To their credit, the scenes with who is it, Jack and Frank. They play. I don't say they play very straight, but they don't really hit them for jokes like the movies had done in the 1990s. And to their credit, that was pretty good. The thing that bothers me the most about Mrs. Doubtfire's story is the fact that it does, like a lot of Christopher Columbus's films, it really does kind of feel like a series of funny happenings, and the story doesn't, evolve all that much. But it in that instance, though, I guess Mrs. Doubtfire does better than some of his other movies. I think Stepmom's another one that I use a lot as reference. Tootsie, on the other hand, I'll be honest with you. When I was a kid, we had Tootsie on Betamax, and we'd watch it a lot. And I don't really know why. At the age of 10 or 11, I thought, it was like I felt like I was watching a grown-up movie. So again, this is the first time I sat down and watched it and absorbed it all the way through. And the striking thing to me the most was that how better Tootsie aged than Mrs. Doubtfire. There's a couple of cheesy 80 things. The score is not that great, but on the other hand, I don't feel like the Tootsie story. There's a whole lot of growth in the characters. Michael doesn't really seem to be at any new place in his life after this, what you think would be a life-changing event, and everything that he's been through as Dorothy. You would think it would change him in some way, but there really isn't any kind of concrete evidence that he's any different after all of this stuff has happened. It's the movie of Tootsie, just like some stuff happened, and I don't really know that too many people changed. And I feel like I'm talking myself into voting for Mrs. Doubtfire for writing, because the story actually has this actually has a little bit more. It goes a little bit farther, but I don't know. I do think the dialogue in Tootsie's better than Mrs. Doubtfire too. So I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah, the dialogue in Tootsie is very good. And when we get to acting, we'll talk about, how we thought the actors did at delivering that. I think it's really interesting. If you'd have told me before I watched these movies, what I would think of them coming into this tonight, I probably would have had a very different opinion than how I actually came out of them. And we'll talk about that in overall. But as far as writing, the strength of Mrs. Doubtfire, I think, is in the change and growth of people and the understanding, that comes to the characters over time. There are obviously a ton of gags, and a lot of them very specific to Robin Williams' abilities. And I'm sure a lot of it is improv and stuff he came up with on the fly. But the conceit of the story is, I think, simple but strong. It gets really muddled in some places because of all the juggling, and obviously it gets very hairy, and it has to, to have some stakes, but it does get a little too complicated at times. But it's pretty simple and straightforward, and I think it's a satisfying conclusion to the story. Tootsie, I agree with you. I think I was really surprised in Tootsie how little him deciding to become Dorothy is really a plot point. It goes from you'll never find work because you're too difficult to work with into the next scene is him walking down the street in a dress. And I was really shocked by that. I thought there would be some more preamble because I've never seen Tootsie before. So my idea of these types of movies is all from Mrs. Doubtfire, which I saw when it came out when I was 10. And in that way, yes, but I think the ideas of, a person who's unable to find and keep somebody and express their feelings and is always trying to find a way to get out of serious relationships, falling in love and coming to terms with that. And one of the great things about Dustin Hoffman's performance is that he always feels very earnest and honest in the film. And that comes through in the end, too. You feel that. But I like the plot of both of these movies, and I think they're both pretty well pulled off. Maybe not to the same degree of success, but as far as like an interesting premise that gets you hooked and drags you along for the ride and kind of compelling storytelling, I think they're both pretty good.
For me, it kind of comes down to consequences and endings. And I felt like Tootsie didn't really know how to end the film. And it seemed like there were very few consequences for his actions pretending to be a woman. Either, and I guess I could use a word consequences for, good or bad things. But I felt like they didn't really know how to end it. And so he just kind of convinces her to, like, I don't know, I don't remember, call him or go for a drink or whatever. And then they just walk off and it's a freeze frame over the credits. And I felt like it was a little bit unsatisfying as far as the ending. And I felt like having duped so many people that the consequences should have been a little bit greater in one way or another. And maybe that would have been like, they could have been positive. It could have been like, oh, wow, well, look how great of an actor he is. He duped people in real life into thinking he was a woman. He's a really great actor. Or it could have been like, you fooled me and you made me feel for you in ways that I wouldn't have felt otherwise, and shame on you, kind of thing. So to me, I felt like the ending was a little bit weak. Mrs. Doubtfire, I think they gave you a better idea of what the consequences were of his actions. And the ending, while it wasn't necessarily tied up in a bow, was a little bit more satisfying to me, And I thought it was kind of interesting in that it wasn't just like a happy-go-lucky, they get back together without question and all this kind of thing. It was a little bit more of an ambiguous ending, but I think that's kind of what I liked about it. So for me, part of the writing category goes to like, how did they conclude these stories? How did they make, and what did these characters end up? What was the final part of their story arc in these stories? So that's what it comes down to for me.
Well, I totally agree with the issue with the ending of Tootsie. I would have liked to have seen more, right? Like seeing him get all these accolades about pulling off being a woman and no one knowing, right? Like that just seemed like it should have had a more dominant reason for what he's doing. But Mrs. Doubtfire, I mean, as far as writing, I enjoy both of these movies immensely as they are. But it's always bugged me about Tootsie and Mrs. Doubtfire. I really like the fact that it is not a happy ending. It's like he's getting his life back on the road. It's not the life that he wanted, but he's getting a life, right? And it's not the fairy tale ending. And some could say maybe it was a fairy tale ending. You know, he's still got his kids. He's got this great new job where he's acting as Mrs. Doubtfire. So maybe Tootsie is more realistic.
Yeah, for the ending, in my opinion, yeah, it seemed a little bit more realistic. It wasn't, as you put it, a fairy tale ending.
Yeah.
My big issue with Mrs. Doubtfire is how Miranda's character, how Sally Field's character is treated. I mean, they make her out to be like a huge bitch, and she's just working very hard. She's to cover that house in San Francisco, which I looked up on Zillow, is $6.5 million.
Yeah, I know,
but
yeah,
yes,
I thought about
insane.
that.
But it's like,
I thought, I'm like, that looks like an expensive house.
And they just like the writing just makes her just like they put her in this villain box, like she's the bad guy. And I'm sorry, I don't think she does anything wrong the entire movie. I don't know why either. She is. But I mean, seriously, I mean, he fucks up at the beginning, and apparently, she doesn't love him anymore, and the same goes with Pierce Brosnan. He doesn't really do anything wrong. He doesn't move in on her really until the divorce has started, and which he is. I mean, they're welcome to have a relationship after they break up. That's allowed. And so I just it has this. It's this whole movie is about people breaking out of their comfort zones and their stereotypes, and then yet they have Sally Field and Pierce Brosnan's characters are these stereotypical ambitious business people, and they're treated like shit for it, and that bothers me. I don't know. That's the other thing is that those second level characters I thought were treated so much better in Tootsie.
There was that scene when they were at the pool, and Pierce Brosnan comes up and is talking to someone he knows, and you're expecting that to be like this reveal of like what a douchebag he is.
Yeah, that he's a villain.
Like he's using, like he's going to be using them for something.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. Or he's got a whole bunch of other women on the side or something. You expect that scene to be like set him up as the villain and make us root for Mrs. Doubtfire, but that doesn't happen. He's like, she's wonderful. They've got great kids.
The kids are great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's actually a really nice dude. And you're like, that's not exactly what I was expecting here, and it doesn't necessarily, make me root for the quote unquote hero at this point, So
it's really funny that you mentioned that, because I think a stronger choice there is, well, obviously Mrs. Doubtfire is drunk. He's been drinking away his sorrow at the bar to the point where he forgets he's in a woman's outfit and hits on a woman. But yeah, rather than being mean and giving him a run by fruiting, if he would have taken a moment and realized when he said their dad's a loser, for him to go, shit, you know what? I am kind of a loser. I've let people down. I've done, bad things, which obviously he learns some of that lesson in the end. But yeah, you're right. The tone there is off on some of these decisions. And I think the issue with that is when you do a movie for the audience, you have to have a hero and a villain. You'd have to have foils and people to root for and root against. And it's unfortunate that the movie isn't brave enough to say, there are no clear good people or bad people in this situation. It's a bad situation. for everybody involved. Instead, it makes, the serious person or the person who's tired of the immaturity and, disrespect and not being helpful and all these other things that he's guilty of, out to be the villain. And the person who wants to be with this woman is the villain now because he's the hero. But the rest of the movie, as far as the, talking about divorce and non-traditional families and a lot about how divorce changes people and what you learn about yourself and other people when you go through a divorce. As someone who's been through a divorce, it hit really hard home with me. Seeing the struggle and making you think about who you are and what your identity is. And, you learn from that stuff. And he learns a lot about himself and family. And he's only able to do that once he's out of the situation, which I thought was really kind of accurate to real life. But as far as Tootsie, when we talk about the secondary characters are much stronger. And I think the blow of having him not have a comeuppance is they try to make a lot of the people he fools out to be bad people. So Dabney Coleman is very sleazy. The doctor is a sex pest. They're made out to be bad people. So tricking them isn't bad. I thought the more logical, strong outcome would have been for him to realize, look, I've screwed something up. This is not going to work between you. Let's stay really good friends. This woman that I have been pushing away is the one that I love, and maybe get together with her instead. But it is kind of weird that he doesn't really learn or grow much from the experience.
I just want to say, too, that they kind of gloss over it, too, but Robin Williams almost kills Stu. Like, Daniel almost kills him.
Yes.
He's allergic to pepper, and it's like they just kind of give each other a pat on the back and go about their day, and I'm like, he tried to kill him. Like, he could have seriously been hurt, and it just, and again, it goes back to the consequences. It's like, oh, well, we're not going to do anything like that. So
I feel like that's a real strong hallmark of 90s comedies.
The allergic thing?
Well, that, and also that an attempt on your life can be brushed away pretty quickly as a joke if it's meant to be funny.
All
I guess,
right.
Yeah.
Great points. Just something to sit by, especially with this conversation that we've been having. Perspective is everything, and sometimes we use humor and such to bring in a uncomfortable situation or a painful situation where you're angry or frustrated or mad at those people. We bring in humor to help ease some of that. And so perhaps that is part of that message that they're trying to also get across. So all really good points, guys. Okay. Well, surprise, surprise. In Tootsie, Bill Murray's dialogue was improvised, which I thought was maybe not surprising.
No.
What I did find surprising, though, was director Sidney Pollack commented that he wanted all the actresses and actors to not approach any of their characters as comedic and to only do them as dramatic characters in funny situations. And in fact, he is quoted saying, "No one ever laughed during the shooting of any of the scenes of the film. It's only funny because of its story structure," which I thought was kind of interesting.
I'd say that it was successful.
In Mrs. Doubtfire, Chris Columbus was amazed how far Robin Williams would take his performance, obviously with his improvising things. He would first play each scene as scripted 2 or 3 times, and then was allowed to improvise or play, as Robin Williams called it. He allowed a lot of improvisations because it was where the film's funniest material actually came from. However, there were so many things that were improvised that were actual references to other works that it became a legal headache for the movie studios, that associate producer Paula Dupree Pessman kept track of every single reference Williams made while improvising to be able to go back and ask for permission.
That would be a nightmare.
Holy shit.
That would be an absolute nightmare.
I'm surprised that you actually need permission for all of that too, because there is some license for
Creative
comedic
license.
parody and that kind of stuff.
Sure.
That you don't necessarily have to have permission for all of it, but maybe they did. I don't know.
Yeah.
And just think about that though. Just think about cutting that together and making.
Oh my god.
Oh yeah.
Well,
and we can talk about that later, I guess, in the directing category. But cutting all that improvisation together is a challenge too.
so Chris Columbus specifically said that all those different takes that he has of Robin Williams doing all this random stuff, he considered magic times on set. So
I wonder if they ever put all that stuff together. I think people, especially now, people
maybe a
would really love to
documentary or
see
something.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, just as kind of like outtakes or something. God,
Yeah.
who wouldn't want to see
I've
Robin
read-
Williams going on a riff?
I've read that there's he said they can put together there is a rated R version of Mrs. Doubtfire
Yes.
that
Oh,
they
for
can put the whole
sure.
movie together.
There's a G, a PG, a PG-13, and an R cut of this movie.
Oh my god.
Really?
Robin Williams is a comedy machine gun. He is so fast.
Yes.
It's unreal. I can't imagine how many hours of him just goofing around there are.
Oh yeah.
And how like fascinating and entertaining it would be.
Oh yeah, I am sure it's amazing.
Anyway,
I would
we're
just watch
kind of-
it in awe.
So speaking of,
We're kind of
it
moving into
turns
the next-
out Robin Williams is a fantastic actor, and Gabe is going to talk all about Robin Williams and Dustin Hoffman and all the other actors.
If
Nice.
I may,
Did
we
we
haven't
technically
voted yet.
vote on our?
Oh, that's right. We have to vote
Aw.
so on each round. Damn it! I was going in with the smooth transition.
I know
Ah,
it was there. It was a good segue.
Totally there. All right, that's fine. We'll vote, I guess. Okay, Tom, writing.
Tootsie.
Okay, and Gabe.
Yeah, I was unsatisfied with the ending of Tootsie, so I'm going to go with Mrs. Doubtfire.
Okay, and Kyle.
Dialogue would go to Tootsie, but overall for the story presentation and the ending, especially Mrs. Doubtfire.
So, like, you want half and half?
No, Mrs. Doubtfire. I just want to give a shout out to the dialogue in
Sure,
Tootsie. It's just really
sure.
good.
And Mike.
Tootsie.
All right.
Close one.
Well, wonderful segue. And Gabe, why don't you continue on with these wonderful segments that we've talking about the majestic and hilarious Robin Williams and Dustin Hoffman, heel to heel in heels.
Oh, very nice.
Whoa.
Very nice. Yeah, this is going to potentially be a tough round because we've got two extremely talented actors in the lead roles in these, and it may come down to how we feel about the supporting cast. Robin Williams, just like Kyle said, a comedy machine gun, and I think he was just like this, frenetic. Just amazing actor who could do this just crazy comedy, but also really powerful drama at the same time. I just think he was quite amazing, and I think a character like Mrs. Doubtfire really plays to his skills to play these characters and do these voices and all that kind of thing. And that there's the beginning scene of Mrs. Doubtfire is him voicing characters in a cartoon. Well, that may as well just have been Robin Williams. I mean, we'll talk about it later. I saw something later where he was doing that exact same thing in real life for his job. He was doing 1 billion voices in rapid succession, and just amazing. And so I really think the casting for that role is perfect. picking Robin Williams was the perfect casting choice. And Dustin Hoffman, he's really great. And I think somebody mentioned it before. He has this kind of genuine quality where you just really feel like he is who he is on screen. And he did seem pretty genuine throughout. I don't know if the casting was as perfect, and I think it plays to some of the jokes too, as far as like he wasn't a very feminine looking man. I don't think he's very big. I think that kind of helped. He's a smaller in stature, and but his face is not very feminine looking, and I think that played into a lot of the jokes. But I thought his performance was great too. So, like I said, I think it's going to come down to supporting cast. So for me anyway. So I don't know. I don't know that I've made that decision yet. Can you guys help me?
If it came down to supporting cast, I mean, I would instantly vote for Tootsie because I love Dabney Coleman. I don't know why. I just love Dabney Coleman.
Me too.
But speaking of secondary characters, every time I watch Tootsie, and I've seen it maybe 10 times in my life, I always forget that Bill Murray is in that movie. Always.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird, isn't it?
Yeah. Like he is just not himself. And I think that's great. And it's always a surprise for me. I'm like, oh, it's Bill Murray. He's in this movie. Okay. Charles Durning, he plays great. Terry Garr, I love Terry Garr. I've had a crush on Terry Garr ever since I was little and saw her in The Incredible Shrinking Woman. Jessica Lange's great. Sidney Pollack, of course, plays his agent, and he's just great. I love that character. You have Superintendent from the Police Academy movies, George Gaines, playing John Van Horn. And he is a great comedic actor. But if it was to just be your secondary and ancillary characters, instantly I would vote for Dabney Coleman and Tootsie would win. But it's not. And, let's talk about Harvey Fierstein, Pierce Brosnan, which we talked about. Polly Holiday, which she's great. But Sally Field just plays a very... I don't know if there's a lot of acting there for her, right? Because any normal person would come home, find this happening, and be upset. And I agree with Tom, where it goes back to the writing, that I think she is treated unfairly and almost cast as the villain. But holy crap, Robin Williams, just what a, as it's been mentioned twice now, machine gun for comedy. I love this movie simply because Robin Williams is in it. And if it was a different actor, I don't know if I would care that much. I really don't. I watched it for Robin Williams. That's what pulled me in. And as far as Tootsie, Dustin Hoffman to me he's a great actor, but a lot of the time I just feel like he's being Dustin Hoffman. He's not really, I mean, granted, Rain Man, he's not being Dustin Hoffman, but I just feel like a majority of the stuff that I have watched, and maybe I need to watch more, is it's Dustin Hoffman doing a very good job of acting like a normal person, which I believe Dustin Hoffman is. You go from chaotic in Mrs. Doubtfire to very grounded in Tootsie. And although the movies have similar themes and everything else, the leads are totally different.
Here's the thing, and this goes a little bit back to acting and probably directing and over. I'll just talk about this later. Let's stick to acting, and I'll come back to this. But Jessica Lange is amazing in Tootsie with all of the chaos going on around her. You somehow feel like you kind of just want to wrap your arms around her and just like take her away from all of the fucking crazy shit on in her life that she doesn't even know about. and I mean, she won an Oscar for it, and it was well deserved. But I feel like on the other side, Sally Field in Mrs. Doubtfire is really amazing, and the one part where just like I had to hit pause because it was so good when she realizes that Daniel is Mrs. Doubtfire at the restaurant, and the only line they give her is the whole time, the whole time, the whole time, the whole time. Like the way that she delivers every single one of those differently as she's flipping through all of the moments that she's had with Mrs. Doubtfire and realizing that it was Daniel and not her. It goes from shock to almost a little amused to absolute fury. And she does it all in like 4 seconds. And it's an amazing read. It really is. So
yeah,
she is really great.
That makes me think of an acting exercise where you do that, where you say the same word, but with different like emotions in it.
It's like she went through all the stages of grief in that one scene.
Yeah. It's an amazing part. So, and it's one of the few times where anyone in that movie upstages Robin Williams. So I don't know. And I love Robin Williams. I think he's really great. And there's part of me too that there's also this. See, I'm going to get in trouble because I'm going to talk bad about Robin Williams. But there's this throwing spaghetti at the wall aspect of his acting that I think for me takes it down a peg because he does just go through so many takes and does so many different versions of it. And a lot of what you see of Robin Williams is really at the hand of the editor and the director changing those and putting them together in a cohesive way and taking the chaos, the genius chaos of his comedy and making it something that people can watch and consume. So there is that bit of that aspect. And it's hard for me to, I mean, I don't know. Is that really acting? Or is that really acting if you're just trying tons and tons and tons of shit and then leaving it to somebody else to pick the best stuff? So
I understand what you're saying.
I'm going to go to hell. I know I'm going to go to hell for that, but that's been something that some Robin Williams movies that I noticed. Some of them like Dead Poet Society and Good Will Hunting, you don't get that. He can be a very one of the greatest actors we had. So
yeah. Well, and he would go on later in his career to sort of prove his acting chops. But you still have to have the talent and the skill to get all that out there to make them options. And he definitely has a very advanced skill set in comedy. And he shows in this film that he can play dramatic as well. Sure, there are a million takes, but the parts he does deliver that have to be part of the story, I think he does really well. I think it's kind of, I don't want to say easy, but you can pick out the parts that are obviously improvised. And those parts actually are one of the things that date the movie the most, because a lot of them are what they think of as topical references in the 90s. And then just sort of like, oh, God, another 90s reference. But if you had me list my favorite actors, it would take me a long, long, long time to get to Dustin Hoffman or Robin Williams. I just don't think of them as like my favorite actors or even like I think of as like great actors. But I was really surprised and delighted by their performances. And in Tootsie especially, the supporting actors are very strong and really, really good and grounded and bring a lot to the story. And to what Sidney Pollack said about playing serious in a comedic situation, I think they do that incredibly well. He did a great job of keeping them on that task. It never feels like a farce. But that's great. I think directing in both these movies is really good. I was also going to say, what else was I going to say? Yeah, there are really bad versions of Mrs. Doubtfire out there somewhere in the recycling bin of an executive where Jim Carrey is cast or the script gets kicked around for a long time and Jamie Kennedy is Mrs. Doubtfire. Something awful. This movie could have been very, very bad without the right actors, actresses, and directors. So yeah, I give both these movies a lot of props. They're both very well directed films.
Yeah, you kind of hit it on the nose, Kyle. You know, we talk about the ins and outs of Robin Williams, and you know, you look at the time, was there someone with that dynamicness that potentially could have pulled off the same type of movie? And that's difficult to say. And that even goes with Dustin Hoffman. You know, he has an acting quality to him that has such a broad range, especially with what they consider Dustin Hoffman with a lot of his method acting. And so good points, guys. Okay. Anyone have anyone else to say anything of what?
I just like to ask.
I think Andrew had a stroke.
You all right, Andrew?
Andrew, you're not going to win the writing category, then it's passed.
Yeah.
We're on acting, Tom.
Yeah.
I know, clearly, we're not on writing. The words are not coming.
I was going to say, if there is, can anybody think of a worse version of Mrs. Doubtfire than one starring Jamie Kennedy?
Oh boy, that's a good. Yeah, probably
Rob
not.
Schneider.
Yeah.
Who?
Rob Schneider.
Oh God, that would have been a real possibility.
What about Mrs. Doubtfire with Roy Schneider?
That'd be so much more like Tootsie. You wouldn't be able. You wouldn't believe it. It'd just be Tootsie again.
Kevin James I would not watch it with Kevin James.
Oh.
Yeah. Kevin James. Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
No.
Yeah.
Adam Sandler.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Only if it's like
Yeah, but we
Uncut
got-
Gems Adam Sandler.
Oh my God, yes.
So in Tootsie, the greatest challenge for Dustin Hoffman was getting Dorothy's voice right. He would read the role of Blanche Dubois in A Streetcar Named Desire, and Meryl Streep would actually offer feedback on his voice. In fact, the character Dorothy did not actually have a Southern accent, but Dustin Hoffman discovered his voice fell more closely into the range of a female pitch while he did that accent. In Mrs. Doubtfire, the character of Mrs. Doubtfire was actually first performed by Robin Williams at a show Andy Kaufman did at Carnegie Hall. Williams actually pretended to be Kaufman's grandmother. Robin Williams did interviews as Mrs. Doubtfire to promote the film and sometimes played the interviewer. He would walk around San Francisco as Mrs. Doubtfire to see if he could actually get away with it. And in fact, he is even known on one occasion to visit a sex shop and bought a lot of dildos and other toys.
That makes me happy. That makes me so happy.
All right. Gabe.
I think Robin Williams seals the deal for me, so I'm going with Mrs. Doubtfire.
Okay. Kyle?
Oh boy, yeah. Robin Williams is great, but I think the strength of the supporting actors, including Dabney Coleman, who Mike and I have a long time history of loving, I'll give it to Tootsie.
Okay. Mike, did we just get his answer or your answer?
Yes. Yep. I got to go with Tootsie.
And Tom?
You're muted, Tom, or you're frozen, or both.
Nope, I said Tootsie, sorry. I was muted. Just trying to keep the background noise down to a minimum.
Okay, that's all right. We appreciate it. So with all this crazy acting, we got to pull in someone who's crazy enough to pull this shit off. So, Kyle, why don't you tell us about our wonderful directors?
Okay, Christopher Columbus. Ooh boy, he's done so many movies, some of which I've really liked, some of which I haven't liked. We have talked a little bit about Robin Williams throwing everything at the wall and seeing what sticks, and is that good or bad? I think he does a pretty good job of reining in and getting what he needs. My assumption would be that there are these beats and these storylines that you need to get out, and please deliver them as written, or more collaborative, like, hey, what are your ideas here? What are your thoughts? And they're played pretty straight and serious and well done. And then there are moments where he just tells Robin Williams, like, fill this time up with whatever, and I'll capture the best stuff. And at that time, and when you're thinking of being like a Hollywood executive and making money, Robin Williams improvising and freestyling and doing all that stuff, that's what sells. That's what people come to see. That's what people want, is like his rapid fire off the cuff humor, right? So you got to think of it that way too. But I think he made some choices that maybe were in the script, so he kept him that way. I don't know how much influence he had. That hurt the tone of Mrs. Doubtfire, which we spoken about a little bit earlier, with the consequences and the who's the villain, who's the hero, and and those kind of things. Some of that falls on the director too, to make sure that's clear and the tone is good there. But you don't know how much of this is like, we're just trying to make a movie and make money, and we're not thinking about that kind of stuff. Sidney Pollack, though, telling actors to act seriously in a comedic situation, I think he nailed that for Tootsie, and it comes through. So you can really see the director's influence on that. Dustin Hoffman and all the other actors give really good performances, which you have to credit somewhat to the director. Obviously, you give the actor credit, but he has to keep them focused and getting what he needs and delivering on his vision. And I thought everyone was pretty much spot on in Tootsie. The problems we have with the movie are more about the writing than they are about the performance and the delivery of the story. Mrs. Doubtfire is a little more scattershot in places, and of course we spoke about having tone problems. But as far as movies with bad direction, I don't think either two of these would qualify as movies with like bad direction.
I respectfully disagree. I don't like Chris Columbus. I find him to be, I think he's a milquetoast director. I think he always plays it safe, and I do not like, I think with the exception of, I'm trying to think of the one movie of his that I enjoy. Home Alone's pretty good. But I don't think that he is anything special as a director. I don't want to get into what he did to Harry Potter, and did anybody see Pixels? I watched that like a couple weeks ago. I don't find him to be a particularly very talented director. I don't think he does anything special, and so Adventures in Babysitting, that one's pretty good. That was his first one. So I really don't like Christopher Columbus. I'm just going to put that out there. And in watching Mrs. Doubtfire, it kind of became evident that, yeah, it's pretty justified, because I don't think he does. I don't know. I mean, this is a really great story about like identity and redemption, and there's nothing really to grab onto, and I don't know. It feels like the entire movie basically hinges on Robin Williams' performance. It's really, like, for me, the only redeeming value in the whole movie. I think there are questions about whether or not some of like the makeup challenges, they go through this whole makeup montage about how complicated and how much work he does to get into to set up this makeup, and look how hard it was. And then at the end, he's ducking into the men's restroom and putting on this very convincing makeup in 30 seconds. And it's just, I don't know. There's some plausibility to it that I just don't, I can't get past. And I'm sorry, but if Miranda and Daniel lived together for 14 years, there is no way in fucking hell he was going to go over to that house 4 hours every night and she was not going to know it was him. It's just not possible. I don't buy it. I don't buy it at all. I think that's like the biggest flaw in the entire movie, is that I don't think he would get away with it. And that's why I think Tootsie does work, because he's this kind of unknown actor that comes in, nobody really knows him, and it's easier to pass it off on the set of a trashy soap opera. But a husband and wife that have been together for over 14 years, he wouldn't get away with it. And so, and I put that on directing. I think that's bullshit. So, also I also hate Chris Columbus. So.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. There's no way he gets away with it. It's just not possible.
So, Tom, could you tell us what you thought of Chris Columbus?
I don't like him. I love Adventures in Babysitting, and I really do. I think Home Alone is a masterpiece. It's so funny, and the physical comedy is great. But after that, man, boy, I don't know what happened. And he did Pixels, and then he didn't do anything for like 5 years. And so I don't. Maybe he realized he didn't have it anymore. But I'm sorry. He's a great writer. I think his writing credits are pretty solid. He wrote Gremlins and Goonies. So, I think there's that. But yeah, sorry. I really don't like him.
Well, I think the best thing, and Kyle alluded to it, but when I was originally doing trivia for this, it's amazing to me that Sidney Pollack was like, okay, you guys are playing this serious. There's nothing comedic about your performances. It's all serious. And it comes out in the tone. It comes out that we're in on the joke. Like, that's how it works. And I think that was a really good idea. With Mrs. Doubtfire, it really bugged me that the two oldest kids found out. I don't know why. I kind of wanted it to be the little girl that found out, not necessarily seeing him peeing, but just figured it out on her own. But I kind of, God damn you, Tom. Like, you've made some really good points about Chris Columbus and the fact that he probably found like Colombia or Cuba and not really the United States. But that's
what a perfect name. What a perfect name for him, right? Where you just kind of like stumbled into these good movies.
Into it, yeah.
Well, I just ruined Chris Columbus for a lot of people. I feel good about that.
Yeah. I can't go any further than that. Gabe, hurry.
Yeah, it's strange.
That's good, Gabe.
Yeah, thanks. Okay. No, I don't have any really strong feelings about either.
That's my problem too.
Sidney Pollack. Obviously that's. I know Sidney Pollack, but I think I know him better as an actor than I do as a director. And I'm looking through his list of films and thinking like, is there something that stands out to me? And I'm sure there are some great ones in there, but I just maybe haven't seen them.
Out of Africa, it won 7 Oscars.
Yeah.
And my grandmother loved that movie.
And then, a lot of Chris Columbus's movies are well known.
Yes.
But I don't know if they're like necessarily great movies. It's they're not. Maybe something that plays into it a little bit. Is like I said, with Robin Williams and having him basically kind of improvise and ad-lib and go crazy with who knows how many takes, and being able to cut that together into a comprehensible film. Maybe we give Chris Columbus a little credit for that, or maybe we don't credit him. Maybe we credit his editor for that. And I guess we don't really have a reference. We know that Robin Williams was ad-libbing. There's no way around it. But we don't really have a reference as to how much. Do we? All the time? Maybe we do. Okay. But there has to be something said about that. Neither of these movies really had outstanding cinematography to me either. Tootsie was very kind of basic 80s movie cinematography, nothing particularly outstanding. Not any like great shots or anything. The lighting wasn't particularly. It almost seemed on a certain level. It almost seemed like a TV show. And obviously there were the scenes where he was on the soap opera, so that makes sense. But even when they weren't, showing him on the set of the soap opera, it's like it still felt a little bit like a TV show. And I think maybe that was just 80s movie. They kind of looked like that, maybe, kind of. But then you got shit like Blade Runner, which was like some of the best cinematography ever.
Wait, hold on.
I was wondering how you're going to work it in.
Yeah,
I did.
Hold on. Who's got their Cinesmack bingo card? Gabe has mentioned Blade Runner.
Yeah, same. Yeah,
I had 8:45. He blew right past that. So,
who won the pool?
No, I had half an hour ago. I didn't get in. So
yeah, we all way under guess.
Yeah. I got it in there though. But seriously, neither of them really had all that outstanding of like cinematography or anything. So this one is a strangely difficult category for me because I don't have any really strong opinions. I don't think anything stood out. I mean, I know Tom has a strong opinion, but
Tom generally has strong opinions.
Yes. I don't.
I just don't like what Chris Columbus did to the Native Americans.
Well,
are we talking about the same?
It's good that you guys don't really have. None of you really have a strong opinion one way or another about how the directing went. It's very obvious that you guys are all kind of on the fence.
All of us, everyone.
Well, yeah, 3 out of the 4.
Is there anything else trashy that you want to say, Tom, or did you get it all out?
I'm fine.
He made a really good point. I'm just saying, he made a really good point.
Nah, I'm not.
Raja Gosnell edited Mrs. Doubtfire, and then he went on to do movies like The Smurfs and Beverly Hills Chihuahua and the Scooby-Doo movies and Big Mama's House.
Well, you may think more of him here in a minute.
Okay.
But you keep going.
But I was going to say, it's funny. I won't fault Raja Gosnell for working with Chris Columbus for 15 years and then making movies like that. So I blame Christopher Columbus for Raja Gosnell's career as well.
There we have it. That's
done.
Yep. So, in Tootsie, cinematographer Owen Rosman was initially opposed to Dorothy wearing glasses because of the reflective nature of the lenses with the lighting and all that stuff. However, they did some tests and they decided that the glasses added a distinct, flattering dimension to Dorothy. Things like Hoffman's prominent nose became less obtrusive, and the glasses further feminized his personality, creating a more noticeable gender separation between the Dorothy and Michael characters. So the glasses stayed, but Sidney Pollack suggested that the production try a special non-reflective coating developed by Panavision. It was a spray used to coat camera lenses, improving light transmission through the front elements. The spray was used on Dorothy's glasses to help with all of the reflection and was found to be a godsend.
That's very nice.
Also,
so the glasses work like Clark Kent's glasses then.
Yeah, yes, right.
Right.
So here's where I was going with this, Tom, for your editor. So Chris Columbus, he would actually use 2 to 3 cameras at a time whenever he would shoot a Robin Williams scene, uncertain of what the improvisational actor would come up with. He actually shot Robin Williams scenes like he was shooting a documentary. Some scenes were shot 15 to 22 times because Robin Williams wasn't satisfied until he had the scene worked out of his system. So
that's not directing.
No. Minus the directing part of it.
Okay.
That editor, the amount of footage, not just, hey, we have 22 takes of Robin Williams doing this line or this scene. We actually have it on 3 different cameras. Can you cut all that together?
Yeah, and all that shit was shot on film.
I know.
Oh my God.
You're like,
How
here. they call it director for a reason. You can't just like let somebody just go loose for 2 hours on 3 cameras. You're supposed to provide some direction.
You have to know when to.
You have to provide direction. Yes, and
let artists do their thing.
And I think there is some compromise. I would agree, but you got to hand it to the editor, because holy shit, I wouldn't want to do that digitally, let alone with film. No, you get put through something like that, you wind up making 2 Smurf movies. And maybe that's why he decided to
make your life easy.
He was like Smurfs easy. I can edit that shit.
Yeah.
Do you guys have
I'm going to animation?
Do you have any clue how involved the director typically is in an editing session? I mean, do they sit
absolutely
together?
Critical.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Or do they let that editor kind of do their thing and then come in and make notes? No.
I doubt it, but
no.
I don't know.
You probably let your editors go through and do a couple passes, because they'll have your notes. They'll have the notes that are being taken while you're directing. Like, you say, okay, I like that take. I like take 23 of 50 or whatever. So they're going through and picking the best, and then they're going to put together rough, and then the director comes in, and that's when
there's some collaboration.
There's collaboration in there.
I would agree
Absolutely,
with that.
director works with the editor. I mean, the editor just doesn't
And
take
I'm
it
sure
and
it's-
say, here you go, here's your movie.
And vice versa.
I
would assume the editor's on set too. In the retrospect,
sometimes, sometimes it's.
I'm sure
it's
it varies
least common.
based on
it's less
the
common
director
than you
and
think.
the editor combo. But I just didn't know if the director was there for every cut, or if the editor, how much of the upfront lifting that the editor did before the director, got involved.
There's a rough cut. There's at least one rough
Always.
cut, if not 2.
All right, Kyle, direct and tell us.
Oh no. I don't want Tom to beat me up, so I'm gonna vote
No.
for.
You vote for your heart. I don't take it personally.
Okay. I want Tom to beat me up. It would make me horny, so I'm gonna vote for Mrs. Doubtfire.
Wow.
Oh,
Wow.
bad choice.
Mike.
Well,
Vote
how
with your
can I
heart,
follow
but
that
not
except
that.
for the fact that Tom makes a really good point about Chris Columbus, but I've given 2 rounds to Tootsie, so I'm going to give it to Mrs. Doubtfire.
Oh my god!
Wow.
All
right.
Okay, Kyle, you're off the hook because that pisses me off.
All right.
What the hell?
Tom, if you don't have my address, I'll send it to you. And
Here's the thing: I could take Kyle. I don't think I can take Mike.
Hey now, you can only take me if it lasts more than 20 seconds.
that first
If I
20
catch your
seconds.
ass inside 20 seconds, you're a dead man. But if you get away from me, I'm fucked.
That's right. I'm spry.
Yeah, you are pretty slippy. That kind of bothers me. I'm scared of you.
I am. If I got a ball of baby oil, you don't stand a chance.
Oh my god, Tom's gonna show up at my door all oiled up and ready
Oiled
to
up. Wearing just
What
his
is that in?
I
underwear.
think it's Family Guy or something with the oiled up dude that runs around.
Oh my god.
Oh my god. I'm just gonna skip you because I'm sure you're voting for Mrs. Doubtfire. So
Sidney Pollack. You know I'm voting for Sidney Pollack.
And finally, Gabe, give us our final oily vote for direction.
Yeah, I think Sidney Pollack is probably a better, more accomplished director, so I'm going with Tootsie.
All right. Wow. Neat.
Neat.
Well, now that we have a wonderful, awesome visual of a 50-gallon barrel of KY jelly that's going to be poured over Tom, Mike, slide us into our last category. Overall.
All right. Well, once again, overall always comes down to rewatchability for me. Both of these films are totally rewatchable. but I am always more in the mood for one of the other, which I will say at the end. As far as music is concerned, Tootsie's music, not that great. Cinematography for both felt very basic. It felt like stuff that I would do. So the musical score, not that great. Music used. I mean, it goes to Mrs. Doubtfire. Let's see, what else am I missing?
Do you think that's one of the things that I was thinking is that music can really kind of date a film?
Oh, obviously. Absolutely, it can.
And that's one of the things, like if you pick the wrong kind of music or if you don't do your own score, it could really kind of like, harm the longevity of a film. Some of these songs that were in these, I was like, that didn't age well.
Yeah, the music for Tootsie is just awful, and maybe it will have a resurgence of that type of music. Let's hope not. But now the thing is, when you're doing period pieces, you put in music from those periods that people would know, and so then that music gets popular. Again, for a little bit, you'll see the iTunes pop up that this artist is trending or whatnot, and it's usually because it shows up in a TV show. Tootsie's music definitely dates it, and I mean, to be honest, Mrs. Doubtfire's music definitely dates it. You got dude looks like a lady playing on there, but that's. For us, that's probably a little more different since that was the majority of us, that was our music, right? The 90s rock, and Aerosmith was definitely part of that. But there was something else I was going to say, and I can't remember what it was for overall, but I'll think about it.
What did you guys... go ahead, Tom.
Well, I was going to say, before we leave music, I was going to say Dave Grusin did the score for Tootsie. And he did the score for Murder by Death. And I remember us really liking what he did for Murder by Death. Not as much, I guess, but Clues was actually better. But then Dave Grusin goes on to do one of the greatest film scores of all time with the Goonies. And so I think, I give him credit for that. But there's not a whole lot of other scores on his list that jump out.
Maybe he was warming up.
And I think that's one of the keys too, is that if you use music that was popular at the time, then it's going to age the film. But if you do a good score, that becomes kind of timeless. Because I mean, maybe it will. I might not have great examples, but just like simple, like John Williams scores. Like Star Wars or Raiders of the Lost Ark or something like that. That stuff is timeless.
Hold on, pull out your bingo Godfather. Cards. Mark John Williams down.
Was that in there too? Do I mention him a lot? I don't know. Like The Godfather, or those kinds of things. Those things where it's an original score. Those things can become kind of timeless and take on their own kind of meaning in life. But if you like use period music, it's going to be kind of permanently attached to that period in time, and I felt like these two movies kind of suffered with that a little bit, using period music. It was just one of the thoughts that I had when I was watching. I was wondering what you guys thought about like the whole approach to transgender and cross-dressing. In relation to today's kind of political climate, how do you think they handled that stuff in these two films?
Terribly, but so did everything in the 90s.
Yeah.
That's one of those real hallmarks of the movies from this era, is the casual homophobia, transphobia that we experience. We talk about judging pieces of work by the time they were set in and not by today's standards. And I think, that's one of the not shocking, but jarring things you see especially when you watch movies from the 90s, is it's so it's very casual.
Yeah, you know,
it is. I was surprised at how I felt like Tootsie handled it better than Mrs. Doubtfire, which is weird because it came out 10 years beforehand. But just like the scene at the end with Dustin Hoffman and Charles Jourdain in the bar, like they kind of just, you know, I mean, he did say the line, just like, you know, the only because you didn't kiss me is the only reason that, you know, I didn't punch you or kill you or whatever. But they both did a pretty good job of, I don't know, staying away from the, you know, the gay panic thing that was used for laughs a lot in the 90s and 80s. And then, so I think, I mean, that's to their credit.
Yeah, I agree.
I think
that scene in particular.
Yeah, but I think the bigger issue is why do you need men to dress up like women to have a discussion about women's issues? Can we? And we've evolved on from that, but can we talk about the pressure put on a character like Sally Field's character or Terry Garr's character about how difficult it is to be, you know, a full-time working woman? Why does it take having a man dress up as a woman to bring those discussions to the table? So, and we've made tons of movies about that, and we've had those discussions, and we're still talking about it. But at the time, it was just kind of like, I think we could probably find a more constructive way to talk about these things.
Yeah. It's the idea that you need men to tell a woman's side of a story.
Yeah,
that's kind of bad. But part of it
right.
also,
it's not meaningful until a man understands it.
Right, and I think there are a few instances where that's done with some good intentions, where it's like, well, you don't know what it's like until you walk a mile in those shoes. But yeah, there's definitely in these movies an idea of I didn't know what it was like or what was needed, but now I've experienced it, and that's different. But you know, like it's not crazy in these films like it is in some.
Right.
Yeah.
One of the things that. Go ahead, Gabe.
No, I was just going to say I was a little concerned. I was just going to say I was a little concerned when I was watching these, like, okay, watching these movies through the lens of today is going to really impact them a lot. And I was actually happily surprised at how they did steer clear of some of that stereotypical, you know, homophobia and transphobia stuff in general. There were a few moments where it was kind of a little like, you know, that's maybe a little insensitive, but generally it wasn't about that. So
the one of the things that I look, and I know that I've kind of like bashed on Mrs. Doubtfire. I for the life of me, I still don't understand what drove the popularity of Tootsie, because, like I said at the beginning, it really doesn't really break any huge ground in terms of feminism or the differences between the sexes. It doesn't really move the needle, I think, either way, because as much as they try to talk about the differences in the movie, they don't really come. There's really, I don't know, like nothing ever comes of it. You know, it's back to those consequences. And so I wonder if some of it is that fascination of Hollywood loving movies about themselves is one reason why Tootsie is so, because people have been through those audition processes and they understand, like, oh yeah, been there. And I wonder if that's one of the reasons that drove Tootsie to the awards and acclaim that it had back then in '82.
Yeah, could be.
It was also probably a different time too, right?
It was, and that's the thing too. I watched Tootsie 10 times before 1990, you know, on a videotape. I don't know. I enjoyed it. So, well, I'd have to really ask myself about replayability though. So,
it's an interesting thought when you look at it, even from today, which we talk about a lot of. You know, it was popular to use the whole male to female cross-dressing as a comedy trope.
Mm-hmm.
That I don't know if we would get away with it as much today.
Right. And here's the thing. Is that saying more or less about those movies? Is that saying that we've gotten too sensitive as a culture that we can't make those jokes? Or is it the fact that we have recognized that maybe it's hurting certain people in the population? And
that's a really good discussion.
I think that's the argument around taking some of this out, and censoring comedy to that degree. But
I don't like the whole idea of censoring comedy.
No, I don't either. But a lot of these are cheap jokes, and they're jokes that could be funnier or made better if they weren't played for laughs against. True.
True.
Yeah. So there are arguments to be made about both, I think. And a lot of it is how well you pull it off and whether or not it's relevant. How do I want to say this? Who would you consider like the most respected comedian of today?
Oh, geez.
Okay, don't everybody say Amy Schumer at once. Don't everybody say
Louis C.K.
Yeah,
Jane Cook.
All right. Let's just roll this back.
Let's go back in time before we know everything we know about Louis C.K. And he was the most respected comedian. Now, if he comes out and he does something like this, it has a cachet and a legitimacy that it doesn't have let's pick another person I consider horribly unfunny. Jamie Kennedy. If Jamie Kennedy makes a movie using these as a punching bag, like he's punching down, then it's not nearly as viewed as legitimate.
Right. Well, and maybe that's why White Chicks didn't do nearly as well as Mrs. Doubtfire, or what's the one? Tu Wong Fu, Love Julie Newmar,
or even the Adam Sandler, Jack and Jill.
Oh God, oh dear God.
Well, let's not forget Soul Man.
Yep, they did a lot.
I loved Soul Man as a kid.
Oh my God, it's a horrible, horrible movie.
I haven't seen it since teenage years, maybe.
It's bad. It's really bad. I don't know. It just goes back to why, if you're gonna make a movie about the struggles of professional women, why does it take a man in a dress to make people listen?
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. And whether you're playing it for laughs or you're playing it serious, it doesn't seem to, I don't know. It seems counterproductive.
So it begs the overall question: could you make these movies today?
No, absolutely not.
Never.
There's too many people that want to just bitch about it.
You know what? Let me put it to you this way. Yes, you can. You could make these movies today, but no one's brave enough to, because no one knows how to. Because if you had like a legitimate message that you wanted to put in your story to deliver, you don't have a producer on the planet that would put the money up for it. Not in a million years. They would.
Reminds me of a conversation we have a lot, which is, could you remake Blazing Saddles? And my argument is the only person who remakes Blazing Saddles is Quentin Tarantino.
Correct. Yeah.
He's the only one who gets the carte blanche to do that. Anybody else who does it would be, derided for it. I think it really depends on who it's coming from. And part of that is perception. Are you reviewed as a legitimate artist? Or are you punching down on a minority as the butt of your joke?
Right.
Or are you trying to reveal something greater? This is funny. I never thought I would think this, but Mrs. Doubtfire reminded me of a Pablo Picasso quote, which is something I never thought I would say. And that is that art is not truth, but art is the lie that makes us realize the truth. So even though Mrs. Doubtfire isn't a story that really happened, there is no Mrs. Doubtfire, it makes you realize truth about the human condition and relationships and being a parent and divorce and identity and all these things. And that really is the crux of what art and especially filmmaking is. So I think if you're trying to do that and you're given a pass to do that and you've earned that, you can do these edgier, more difficult, different things. But if you're Brett Ratner or if you're Bryan Singer, I mean, well, Adam Sandler, no, you're not going to be given the opportunity to do those things.
Right. No, and that's, I mean, it just, to me, we always ask, the whole Blazing Saddles question because people don't understand it. It is total satire. And people just all of a sudden get offended because they use the N-word, which is offensive. But they don't look at who helped write it. They don't look at everything in the movie that is trying to prove a point.
Yeah,
but
the people who use that word are the idiots.
Correct. They're the dumbest ones in the movie.
That's the point that nobody understands.
Right.
They just see it and they go, "That's bad. That's wrong."
Yeah.
They don't take any context.
Right. And just recently, one of the most acclaimed TV shows ever for comedy, which was The Office. There is one episode that will never air again, and that's because it's considered racially biased. But it's showing the fact that the manager played by forgot his name, but the manager Michael, Steve Carell, is the dumbest person in the office because of how he is acting.
Yes.
Right?
There's no nuance anymore.
There is nobody
understands that anymore.
No way
or context.
You would ever be able to make that now. Ever. Like The Office, half of The Office would be thrown out.
Yeah. The joke is not on the people Michael Scott is, belittling. The joke is on him for being an idiot.
Correct. That's what makes it so funny.
And that's what's sad, I think, Mike, you hit on it with, is that what's sad with our society, that have we gone so far that we're, in a sense, judging books by its cover instead of actually looking at the movie and the story that it's telling versus,
right.
What are we immediately offended by? And that's all that matters now.
Correct. Just instant fury.
And
I've got to hit Twitter and
that's
tweet about it.
Our society has changed a lot. So it's interesting. I'm sure we could cover this topic overall in the world quite a bit. But I'm going to cut you all off. Who has something else to say? This is your last 10 seconds. Plead your case. Nothing? Didn't think so.
I'm good.
So, Tootsie. This is your last couple of trivias. Here you go. Dustin Hoffman's 2-hour makeup job included shaving his legs, his arms, the backs of his fingers. While he was in a sauna, he taped back his facial skin to tighten his features and installed daintier-looking false teeth. No amount of makeup could conceal Hoffman's 5 o'clock shadow for very long, however, so he could only be filmed for 3 to 4 hours at a time.
Now, I just want to say, they picked 2 of the hairiest men ever to turn into women.
No, they did.
Right? Like, and
this
is not against them, but it's just like Dustin Hoffman, pretty hairy guy. Robin Williams, fucking Sasquatch.
And he had said it in the past and always has, that it wears a sweater.
Yes.
His body is made out of a sweater.
Yes.
So Mrs. Doubtfire. So this is I found this one to be the most shocking out of the trivia. Talk of a sequel began in 2003 with a script being written by Bonnie Hunt. So there were a lot of problems, so they started rewriting it in early 2006 because Robin Williams was unhappy with the plot. The film was expected to be released in late 2007, but following further script problems, the sequel was declared scrapped in mid-2006. The original story for the sequel was Mrs. Doubtfire moving close to his daughter's college so he could keep an eye on her. Serious discussions wanted to have the sequel reignited in April of 2014. Robin Williams and Chris Columbus were both teaming up with Fox 2000 Pictures to actually produce the sequel. Unfortunately, with Williams' death 4 months later, actually killed the sequel permanently.
It is a shame that movies make money because it is the cause of so many bad artistic decisions.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Oof.
There is zero need for a Mrs. Doubtfire 2.
Correct. It's just for
The
me.
great thing is that someone didn't go, oh, we'll do it again with a different actor or reboot it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
It was so
Kinda
in
like
there.
what they did with Dumb and Dumber.
Yeah, they always said that if Robin Williams can't do it, then they weren't going to do it. So good on their part for that.
Yeah, good on them.
Yeah, I mean, who else would?
True.
Who would do it that way?
So overalls, Mike.
Oh boy. Okay, so to be clear, I came into this entire discussion knowing that I was going to vote Tootsie for writing, Mrs. Doubtfire for acting, Tootsie for directing, and overall. So I've got to split my vote once again. I went with the acting because I can't leave my buddy hanging with our love for Dabney Coleman. Mm-hmm. So I'm going with, I mean, if I'm going to sit down and watch a movie, if both of them are on at the same time, I would probably go with Mrs. Doubtfire. I know it's going to make me laugh a little bit more, a little more intense. So Mrs. Doubtfire.
Tom.
And that's not because of Chris Columbus's directing work.
Clearly not. No, that's safe to say. At least, yeah, Tootsie. But I'll be 100% honest. I don't know if I'll watch either of these movies ever again. So neither of them really made. I don't know. I'd rather probably watch something else. Let's talk. Yeah, and I'll tell you what I'd rather watch when we get to recommendations.
God, the segues are on point tonight.
Yeah.
That's my job tonight.
It's too bad they're coming too early.
I'm helping you out. Also,
we have
making sure
premature segues, fellas. Premature segues.
Chop my load.
Gabe.
They make medication for that. Yeah, this is a little bit of a tough one to me too. When I saw these, I think I don't remember if I had actually ever seen Mrs. Doubtfire all the way through. I had seen Tootsie before, a long time ago. I was happily surprised at how much I enjoyed them. I laughed and enjoyed them. But I think I would go back to Mrs. Doubtfire more often if given a choice. So I'm going to go Mrs. Doubtfire.
All right. And Kyle.
As is so often the case, I came into this episode not thinking I would think too much of these movies. But Mrs. Doubtfire, a movie I saw when I was a child, and Tootsie, a movie I'd never seen before, were very, very enjoyable, and I like them both quite a bit. But I have to give my vote just for the movie I'd watched the most and the movie I enjoyed overall the most. I have to give it to... I'll give it to Mrs. Doubtfire.
Okay. So, while we have all of our wonderful monkeys try to figure out exactly who won, we've had to let a few go. So, if you are looking for maybe a friend, they are looking for some new employment. So, it takes them a little bit longer to do the math. And the rest of them on the Zoom call just never seem to work. So, it takes a minute. We're going to jump to recommendations. Tom?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, Tom, you get to do your little recommendation.
Yeah, sorry, I'm getting called away. So I'm going to shout out my recommendation, then I'm going to cut out. I'm so sorry, but I have to get going. But so my recommendation has Robin Williams in it, and it has cross-dressing in it. It's from 1996, and it's the Mike Nichols classic, The Birdcage. It is fantastic and avoids all of the pitfalls that we've seen in these two movies. It handles everything with grace and honesty, and it's very, very funny. And I'm a little surprised that it's not thought of more often. but I think it's easily better than Tootsie or Mrs. Doubtfire. And if there's ever when I ever want to watch a movie like that, I always put in Birdcage because top to bottom, the supporting cast, the main actors, they everyone does great. And so my recommendation is The Birdcage.
That is a great recommendation. That is a fantastic.
Thank you very much.
Gabe.
Well, I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to bring us down a little bit, which is not unsurprising for me either. But I'm going to recommend a documentary called Robin's Wish, which is about Robin Williams' last days. And, sometimes when a celebrity passes, you go, oh, that's too bad. And then sometimes you go, we've really lost something here. And Robin's Wish is a really interesting, touching, and educational look at Robin Williams' last days. I would recommend it very highly.
I have been wanting to watch that, but I'm very afraid of what it will do to me emotionally.
Well, if you can't tell, I'm having I'm struggling not to just kind of it was a rough watch.
Yeah.
But worth all of it. And you realize just how special Robin Williams really was as a human, not just as some crazy, comedian or an actor, just as a human being. He was a really special, unique individual.
Yeah.
And it's not very long. The good thing is you only have to have your emotions, torn apart for a little over an hour.
Right.
So it's not very long, but it's very well done. And it's very cool to see his friends and his wife and all that talk about him too. So yeah, I would definitely recommend it.
Yeah, it was definitely noted multiple times that Robin Williams would hire basically homeless people to be extras in the film because he wanted to give so much. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there are moments that I think you said it best when you look at what an amazing person he was outside of acting, that it makes it more of a tragedy and not just we lost an actor. Right. So he was actually a really good. Yeah, he was an amazing human being. So I agree 100% with that one as well. That one's awesome. Kyle, you are up.
Oh, buddy. Well, yeah. I'll pick a movie that brings you down, but in a different way. And it was one of the movies I saw that really made me realize that Robin Williams can actually act. I mean, obviously he's well known for being a comedic actor, but could do some drama stuff too, and was kind of hailed as a real departure for him. And that's a movie called 1 Hour Photo. If you've never seen that movie, I recommend you do, because you will see a side of Robin Williams you didn't think existed or know existed. And as it turns out is the case so often, comedic actors end up being just good actors. It's a lot easier to make the transition from comedy to drama than it is to go from drama to being a comedian. So yeah, 1 Hour Photo. I would definitely recommend it.
That's the first movie I saw at the Fleur Cinema and Cafe.
Oh, wow.
Really?
Yep.
Huh. Yeah, I would say that there are certain films that really pull the strings out of good actors. Jim Carrey, if you've ever seen The Majestic, really pulled out a person who we believed could only do over-the-top stupid comedy, and you realize that Jim Carrey is a phenomenal actor. So that's you are absolutely, and that's a deep, dark movie, and it's brilliant. So also a very good one, Kyle. Mike.
All right. Well,
Dun dun dun.
Yeah, this movie is just going to be purely for entertainment. I got to thinking, I'm like, there's a movie from the 90s that I absolutely loved, and I used to watch it a lot. And come to find out, it was directed by Chris Columbus. And it's from 1995. I mean, at the time, I was crazy for Jeff Goldblum, who was in it, and Tom Arnold, who was in it, because in my opinion, there are only two great Tom Arnold movies that he appears in. One is True Lies. One is this movie. It also has Joan Cusack. It gave me a new crush in Julianne Moore. And of course, it stars Robin Williams in a role that is absolutely hilarious. And, it stars Hugh Grant, but I mean, you could honestly kind of put anyone in that role and it would have been fine. But the movie is called 9 Months. And I absolutely love Tom Arnold in that movie. And I love Robin Williams in that movie.
Good choice.
Nice. Can we just take 10 seconds and talk about what an overachieving movie True Lies is?
Yes.
It should suck, right? You'd think about it like you put it together and you go, the sum of all of its parts is so much better.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy, just crazy.
But once again, it proves that Cameron is usually at his best when he has Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, well, yeah. Crazy.
Well, my recommendation kind of fits in the middle ground of a Robin Williams movie. There are a lot. There is a lot of movies that I love from my childhood that, from Aladdin, Dead Poets Society, Hook, and all those. But I would say that one of them that was really profound to me that happened later in life, I found out was based on actually a true story, is based on a real person, and was almost a biography type movie, where Robin Williams got to be a strong, dramatic actor, and there are some really, really intense scenes to very funny scenes, and that would be Patch Adams. Mm-hmm. So, very, very good film, and it shows what greatness there is in the world, and almost a parallel to who Robin Williams was, at least from what I know from reading and documentaries and, seeing the interactions he actually had with Patch Adams himself while making the movie. And so it's a pretty damn good flick. So highly recommend that one. Okay. The moment everyone has been waiting for. The monkeys have jumped down off of their high horses.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? Your winner, by decision, is... It's a tie!
Dun, dun, dun! That's right.
Oh, man.
Boys and girls, Tootsie and Mrs. Doubtfire tied it out as basically the same.
Oh boy, I got to reach out to the monkey and have him record another.
Oh no!
Oh no! The ending.
Yeah.
Aww.
So what's our usual?
So in the past, we've had it where we've kept it as a tie, where listeners can actually write in and try and change a vote or put in a vote for it, or we've let the host vote and be the deciding factor. So we've done all of them.
So, and to be fair, I would say that the reason why I thought that leaving it as a tie, as it stands, is we talked about some really good points on all parts of this movie, and the voting across the board was pretty much 2-2 for every single round. So it's a really, really balanced movie, or balanced movies in all aspects. And so I felt that just shows the amazingment of both of these films in such a big generation. So I like
I'm
it.
good with that.
Okay. There we go. We tied it up. Sorry they had to fight. Sorry they only have 4 fingers. Poor little guys. All right.
Say what now?
Well, they only have 4 fingers. The little monkeys. See? 1, 2, 3, 4. That's all that. Yeah.
Got it.
Okay.
Got it.
No opposable thumbs.
Okay. Well, enter lead balloon on that funny joke. Done. And we'll move on.
I don't think you can call it funny if no one laughs.
Correct.
Yeah, this is enter lead balloon, and we're moving on. All right, Cinesmacketeers, we'd appreciate it if you could leave us a review on Google, iTunes, or whatever podcasting service that you use. It helps us reach new listeners. Now, if you like us, listen with your friends, your family, I don't know, girlfriend, boyfriend, it doesn't really matter. But if you hate us, make sure you tell everybody, including your enemies, because that's the most important part. Because we want any emails or comments that we can actually get. Even the hate mail. We love it. We just want something from you. That'd be great.
Just send it to Tom.
Send it to Tom. You can contact us at cinesmack@gmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter. And for some reason on Facebook is still there. So you can just search Cinesmack and you can go out and you can find these wonderful social areas. All right, for May, we deep dive into how to do the little bendy thing on guitars while recording in a famed recording studio. It's documentaries of It Might Get Loud versus Sound City. For Kyle, Tom, Gabe, Mike, and myself, thanks for listening. And hey, go catch a flick.
Oh, Andrew, I'm so happy.
What did I do?
You know, I haven't seen. He's just giving me the old Harvey Firestein congratulations.
Oh, I thought you were giving me shit.
I haven't seen a lot of movies with Harvey Firestein, but man, he has got charisma.
He does.
Yeah.
He's really got
charisma.
like something that draws you in. Yeah. It's really good.
Yeah.
This has been a test of the Southsider Studios podcast system. This was only a test. If this were a true lack of entertainment, your head would explode. Go to iTunes and subscribe to our feed. Just search Southsider Studios.
Step into the world of power, loyalty, and luck.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
With family, cannolis, and spins mean everything.
Now, you wanna get mixed up in the family business.
Introducing The Godfather at ChumbaCasino.com. Test your luck in the shadowy world of The Godfather slot.
Someday, I will call upon you to do a service for me.
Play The Godfather, now at ChumbaCasino.com.
Welcome to the family.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply.